So my name is Mike Denninger, and I'm the creator of Multichannel Eye Movement Integration. I'm here with Norman Spurr, who has taken the MEMI course and is now in the process of doing coaching. So welcome to this interview, Norman.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be with you.
So what we're about today is we're going to talk about some work that Norman and I did during a coaching session. It was about 3 weeks ago, I think. Is that right, Norman?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to look at this in 3 different parts. And the first part has to do with a problem that Norman experienced for much of his adult life, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And that we kind of stumbled across while we were having a conversation during the coaching session. And the first thing that we want to know is what the problem was like before we had this opportunity to work on it. So why don't you describe for us what the problem was and how it interfered with your life, Norman?
Yeah, sure. I guess most people would probably know it as being claustrophobic, but for me, it was quite particular. So, for instance, I can't sit in a window seat of a plane. I need to have the aisle seat. Most recently, I was going to a Pink concert in a big stadium, thinking we'd booked the aisle seat so I could get out easy, but unfortunately, my wife had booked some seat in the middle, and there was no way known I was going to sit there, mate. No way known. Going to a football game, same thing. I need an aisle seat. Even going to the theatre. Yeah, and the triggers for me really are something pushed up against my legs, and the other trigger for me is if I'm feeling hot, tends to bring on the panic and like real panic attack at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds severe. And for how long have you had this?
Oh, look, I know I can remember the first time I felt it, but it's probably just got more. It's probably just got more severe over, and I'm talking decades. So yeah, and again, just that pattern of avoidance and avoiding these situations just keeps building. Then
Okay.
the panic when I am faced with it.
Okay. But it's especially when something is pushed up against you. Is that right?
Yeah, so definitely something pushed up against my legs. I feel hot, and I guess the thing I've came to learn with our now session, Mike, is when there's someone else involved. So I'm sure I could sit in the theatre. I'm sure I could sit on in a window seat in a plane, but it's more really there's people next to me and they've got control as to whether I could escape or not, is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Interesting word, control there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what specific emotional and physical reactions do you have when that happens? You mentioned getting hot. What else happens?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel it in my chest. Racing heart, shallow breathing. Definitely sweat. Definitely feel hot. Um,
Are you feeling that way now, Norman?
I can actually feel it a little bit. Yeah, you're good.
A little bit.
Yeah, now that I remember the situations, I can feel it, but
Yeah.
definitely not to the extent of what I was. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I saw you flush a little bit.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So how did you try to overcome this in the past?
Yeah, good question. Mainly avoidance. Yeah, I'd had hypnotherapy to address it a long time ago. Probably 15 years ago. And I saw some that was one session. I saw some immediate change, but it wasn't it didn't stick. Again, I found myself, I tried it a few times, but invariably found myself falling back to just avoiding.
Okay.
It was almost like I was in a pattern of, well, this is what I've always done. So even though I felt okay about it, I'll just continue to book the aisle seat of the plane. Right?
Yeah, why not? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what we actually did and how it
Mm.
unfolded during the coaching session, right? So how did it first come up in the discussion?
Yeah, I think there was another student in there that was talking about a client that was claustrophobic in a lift. And then I thought, oh, well, that was the opening for me to share my experience. And I think you were straight on to me then. So, yeah, it came up for me. And the interesting thing is I'm not claustrophobic in a lift. Yeah. Um, and even though there are other people in the lift, I'm not claustrophobic in a lift. But if I'm in a situation where someone has got control over me exiting, then that's my trigger. So
So I'm curious, Norman. Someone has control over you. How would someone have control over you, say, in a movie theater if you're seated in a middle seat?
if I wanted to get out, um, I go to the facilities, anything like that. Um, I guess subconsciously I'm thinking, well, what if they don't let me? Now I'm trapped. And yeah,
Okay, so we're going to put a post-it note on that. What if they don't let me? I'm trapped.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so how did we decide what problem to address with MEMI, with the eye movements?
Yeah, I recall you asked me what was the earliest memory I had of it. Um, because when you said you were going to work on me, I thought, oh, well, I immediately went to let's deal with the most recent one because that was the most recent traumatic one for me. But yeah, you got me to go back to remember my first memory of it. I'm happy to share that if you want me to. So yeah, so I was with my brother. So we're both of us around 9, 10 years of age, and Dad needed some work done under the house. And it's one of those old houses in Australia where it's got a little grate at the bottom of it. And at that age, we thought, hey, this will be fun. So got dressed up in old clothes, put stockings on our head to protect us from the dust, and we were hot. and and got us under the house. And 9, 10 years of age, we could fit under there. But I remember getting 3/4 of the way, and that was the first time I felt a beam on from the floor on my shoulder. And I still remember turning around to my dad and saying, um, "Don't lock that gate on us, will you?" And I still remember the words. Maybe I won't repeat what he said, but let's just put it this way: we're forced to actually continue through to the where he needed some work done under the house. So,
Just to be
um,
clear for the audience, you don't have to say exactly what he said, but he said some strong words to you, right?
yeah, yeah, expletives. Yeah, and basically, yeah, I felt like I had no choice but just to push on
Yeah.
and keep going. Yeah,
Get in there and do what I told you to do. Kind of like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, but just with some colorful language, right?
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. And I asked you when you told me about that if you had a reaction to it. And the first
Yeah.
time you explained it to me, what was your response?
Uh,
This was before all of the emotions came up.
oh yeah, no, yeah. I said I dealt with it. Like it wasn't. I was fine with that. Because again, I was thinking, well, yeah, I've dealt with it. That was back then, but the more immediate things are these other things.
Okay.
But you persisted.
How did I persist?
Yeah, well, you got me to explain what I felt like um, under the house. And what did I feel like when that beam first touched my shoulder, and the emotions came up. Um, yeah, I literally felt hot. I could feel myself breathing in the top of my chest. And the panic was coming on. So, which I found really surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that you seem surprised by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely surprised by it because in my mind, yeah, that was then and I dealt with it. Um, but clearly I hadn't because it was like I was back there. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so when we did like how many sets of eye movements? Do you remember?
Three, I recall. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the sequence? What happened after the first set and the second set and the third set?
Um, yeah, I remember the change was progressive. After the first one, like there was a shift. But I still felt it. I guess the image of it had faded a little bit more, but I could still feel it in my chest, probably not to the extent. Um, and then I know with the second eye movement, I think we went through it again, and again I had that sensation that it was getting better. It wasn't as bad. And then interestingly, the third set, you really got me to focus on that feeling, that physical feeling in my chest, and that so I focused on that, and by the end of it, it was gone.
Mhm.
Um,
Is
yeah,
that what
it
you
was.
said? I can't remember your words exactly.
Uh, yeah, I can't remember the words. I think I've said I felt lighter. I think I said I felt at peace.
Ah,
um, yeah, and I definitely felt like calm. Like even thinking of it now, like it doesn't have the reaction it once did. Um, yeah, that was the sequence from memory. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that sounds about right to me too. So it's been 3 weeks now, right? And you've had
Yes.
some time to, kind of experience what it is like now afterwards. Have you had opportunities when, you thought about that experience or other things have come up that reminded you of what you used to have as a problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So whilst I've had limited opportunity to sort of put myself in those situations, but most most recently before the therapy, um, and heading to a concert, even thinking back to my response then, I don't have the feelings like I normally would have thinking about it.
Okay.
I look at that now and think, well, if I was in the same position again, I'd be fine. Um, so previously, even going back and remembering how I reacted would bring it on. It doesn't bring it on anymore. Um, Only this week, I did go to the theatre, but I got to say, Mike, I booked the tickets like months ago, so I did book an aisle seat. But even interesting with that, like previously, I would have thought, okay, I know I booked an aisle seat, but what if they got the seating wrong? What if they've rearranged things? What if we were double booked and now we have to sit in the middle? And that would have even brought on those feelings, and it didn't. Um, I was with my wife, so I deliberately sat one seat in. I wasn't on the aisle, so it's a little theatre, right? I was cramped in there, but I didn't feel the heat, interestingly. The seat was in front of me, was right up against my knees, but I didn't have those symptoms, those panic symptoms that would have come on. So there's definitely been a shift. And you know what? If I had to have sat a few more seats in, I believe I would have been fine.
Good.
Yeah,
So
so huge shift.
here's the million-dollar question. What did you learn from our work together?
Uh, what did I learn? I guess as a student of this method, um, it gives you a framework. It gives you something to anchor to. It is a process, and that was one thing I learned. The other thing I learned was, um, when you came back and asked the questions, is it the same or different after each set? And then as you went through, you got me to focus on where it was still, so if it was less about the image of it and more about the feeling, when you got me to project that image over there, you got me to focus on the feeling more when you did the next eye movement. So you seem to be always hunting for where's it still the issue? Is it the feeling? Is it the visceral feelings? Is it the image? Yeah. That was the other thing I learned, that you've got to be looking for that feedback. And with the feedback, well, how do I adapt it for the next movement? Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, for me, it worked. So
Yeah,
they're probably the three things.
you've remembered it very well. I applaud you.
Yeah, thank you.
So in all of this, what any surprises for you?
Yeah, I guess the surprise was, you went for my particular issue. You went back. You went back to as far back as I could remember for it, as opposed to the most recent experience, which from my perspective was the greater panic.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was the surprise, that you took me back to something that I thought I'd dealt with, but clearly when you took me back there, I hadn't. I just suppressed it. That's probably, yeah, that was one surprise, I guess. No real surprises. I'm not surprised it worked. um, yeah. No other surprises.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been able to use MEMI
Yeah.
with some of your own clients, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen kind of comparable things happen with your clients that happened with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And only this week I was caught a little bit by surprise by a client, that came in to see me largely around, just past trauma, depression, anxiety, general statements around this. And then she made the statement about 15 minutes in. She said, "Oh, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to share this, but I'm going to, that I was raped as a teenager." Which obviously took me by surprise. But the good thing is, having learnt this method and practiced this method, it gave me something to anchor to, something I felt not only confident in that I could deliver, but confident that I'd be able to get a result. So I worked through that with her, and we did 3 eye movements. No, didn't need to get to a fourth set, and we got her from an overall rating of obviously 100%. We had her down at 40% after 3 eye movements, and that's a trauma that she's carried with her for around 20 years. So
Awesome. Wow, that's a great
yeah,
piece of work.
yeah, thank you. And look, at the end of that, it makes you feel good, right? To
Yeah,
actually help someone. So thank you.
you're welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
I guess in summary, like, it's a process. It's something you can, as a therapist, you can have confidence in anchoring to, that if you follow the process and you watch and you listen for the feedback, you'll get the outcome. That's what I've learned over the last few weeks, and using it with clients, and that's probably the biggest thing I can share. Like, just have faith in the process, look for the feedback, and adapt it with each eye movement. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Norman. I really appreciate you being willing to do this with me.
You're more than welcome, Mike, and more importantly, thank you.
You're welcome, of course. Well, I'll see
Okay.
you in the next coaching session.
Okay, I look forward to it. Thanks,
All
mate.
right. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.